And going into work day in, day out, while, everything that's happening in your personal life is kind of, as bad as it can get. And turning up and trying to still be positive, still have your eye on the game. Even though you tell your staff, hey, you can leave that stuff at the door, don't let it affect your work. In reality, when it's happening to you, it's really, really hard. And everything at the time felt very out of control.
Hi, and welcome to the Entrepreneur Organisation Business Podcast. I'm your host, Linh Podetti. My guest today is Greg Sanderson, a member of EO Melbourne and co-founder of Speakeasy Group, a high-end boutique hospitality group operating 9 venues across Sydney and Melbourne. Greg oversees the day-to-day operations as a managing director, running the company with his partner, Sven. Now, today's episode is going to leave you inspired. Greg takes us on his challenging journey of overcoming a divorce. He shares vulnerable insights into the cause of the divorce, how he got through it, and the lessons he gained from making it through to the other side. I was seriously overwhelmed with emotions hearing Greg share his story, and you're going to love it too. Now, let's join me in welcoming Greg. Welcome to the show, Greg. So great to have you here.
Thank you. Awesome to be here.
Yeah, I had the fortunate opportunity to meet you in person at EO Melbourne. And so it's good to have you on here to share your journey. So let's get started with, learning more about your background and why did you get into the hospitality industry?
I think it was probably, if you talk to people in the hospitality industry, I think like 80% of people, maybe even more, kind of fell into it. They were doing a marketing degree or something else, and they worked in hospitality through their degree, and then they got to the end of it and they were like, I'm going to stay in hospitality. I actually decided, I think when I was 17, that I wanted to do hospitality. So I went to university and I did a degree in hospitality, probably one of the few people in our industry that did it at university. I've got a Bachelor of International Business major in Hotel and Tourism Management. And then I've just done, I think 23 years of working in the industry, from mostly bartending, cocktail bartending, restaurants, cafes, nightclubs, all through bartending, floor positions, management positions, and then for the past 12 years as an owner-operator.
So tell me more about your company, Speakeasy. Is it a group of restaurants and bars, etc.? Or tell us more.
I guess we kind of started out as a singular bar and then turned into a bar group. But over the years, we've got, almost as many restaurants as bars. So I'd say a hospitality group. We've got 5 venues in the Melbourne CBD, which is Eau de Vie. It's been there for 12 years. Eau de Vie, Nick and Nora's, Pearl Diver, and Boilermaker House, which is a craft beer and whiskey venue. And then we've got Mjolnir, which is a Viking-inspired restaurant, which is a bit left of center, but it's amazing. And then in Sydney, we've got an Mjolnir Sydney, Eau de Vie Sydney, Nick and Nora's Sydney. That tends to be something that we like doing, popping up in cities. And we've also got our latest restaurant on George Street in the Sydney CBD called the Sanderson.
Amazing. When I was drinking, which is only about a year ago, I've tried Nick and Nora's. It was amazing. Like, I love the experience there. Viking, the whole drinking through the little bone marrow, that's amazing. Everyone needs to try that. But it was also interesting to know that you did international business. It was at RMIT, because that's what I did as well.
No, I'm from Queensland. It was at the University of Queensland, St. Lucia, mostly at the St. Lucia campus, which is a gorgeous, gorgeous campus.
Okay. So you were a Queensland guy originally, moved to Melbourne, or what's that all about? Because I thought you were Melburnian all the time.
I've been here long enough. It feels like that. No, I'm from Queensland, Sunshine Coast, about 100 kilometers north of Brisbane, and then moved to Brisbane for university, and then did 2 years in Scotland to get acclimatized, ready for Melbourne. And then I've been in Melbourne like 17 years, I think.
17 years now. Okay, awesome. And do you go up to Sydney much? Like, why did you decide to kind of launch out in the Sydney space as well?
Well, there's 2 of us, 2 main partners for the Speakeasy Group, myself and Sven Manning. And he lives in Sydney. I live in Melbourne. And we've kind of just built the company kind of around where, the areas that we know and the cities that we live in.
Yeah. Okay. And so which one was your first one? What was it like? Like, how did you come up with the idea of the first venue, and what was it like to launch the first one?
The first one was kind of like actually Outsourcing Sydney, which was definitely Sven's child. Over the years, we've grown together as a business partnership and thrown ideas out there. Obviously, there's a restaurant now called the Sanderson, which is named after me. Boilermaker was because I love drinking whiskey and beer. Sven wasn't the biggest beer drinker. So over the years, we've kind of put ideas together and grown together. But Outsourcing was definitely his idea back in the day. And that was because we both worked for a consultancy company, Sven's consultancy company called Behind Bars. And we worked with a company called Diageo. And they're a big spirit company. They own Johnny Walker, Tanqueray, Smirnoff, Kettle One, everything. And their mission for the Australian drinker was to bring, the spirit journey or the spirit journey in someone's evening a couple of drinks early, because Australians tend to drink beer and wine, and they switch to spirits when they want to, take it up a notch. Is the nice way to put it. And Sven was like, well, why can't spirits be in the entire occasion? Like, why can't we have a nice aperitif, before dinner cocktail? And where we created a place where spirits were the whole show. Also judging a lot of cocktail competitions at the time. And we would see these amazing cocktail creations that would be made by bartenders, and they would be presented in a cocktail competition, and then they'd never see the light of day. And back, 12, 13 years ago, every cocktail was served in the same shaped Ypsilon glass. And we created basically unique glassware, one for every cocktail, which is now pretty standard across most good cocktail bars. Started at Outsourcing Sydney. Outsourcing Sydney 2.0 is on George Street in the city, and then Outsourcing Melbourne followed just a couple of months after, I think, to 11 months after, I think. And then it kind of went from there.
Yeah. So now that you've kind of launched so many different venues, what's a typical process you go through to turn it from an idea to launch? Is how long does it normally take, and how do you normally come up with that concept?
We've done it a couple of different ways, I guess. Our last couple of builds has been with developers, and we've got in on the ground floor, almost becoming an anchor tenants, and so we'll typically for the last couple of times have got in right in the design stage. And that's, Nicanor Melbourne, was 2 years from when we signed the lease or started looking at it seriously to opening the doors. So a 2-year time period is generally if we're starting out to do something from scratch. And then if you take over a venue that's kind of gone out of business, you can do it a bit quicker, but it's still a 12-month process from start to finish. It's a big process. What we like doing is having a concept that we put into, and we go looking for the perfect venue to put that in. We've got an idea for a venue, whether it's Outsourcing or Boilermaker House, and we find a venue that concept would really work. Although we have done it differently a few times. Mionia, Sydney, which was the first Mionia, came out of, we were looking for a venue for Boilermaker House, found a great venue that we fell in love with, but Boilermaker House was not going to work there. So what's going to work there has to be a destination. It's in the middle of Redfern. There's no walk-by traffic. What are people going to literally get an Uber here, get out of the Uber, have their dinner dining experience, and then probably go off back in the Uber? And that's how Mionia was created, that real destination venue. We kind of did the same for Nicanor as well when we found a venue in Parramatta on level 26 of Macquarie Street. What's going to work here? So we've done it both ways. I think I personally like having a concept, looking for the perfect venue to execute that.
Yeah. And is this also the part where you also look for the right chef to come into the concept? So it's always with the concept first and then finding all the different people that's involved in making it. Is that right?
Yeah, but you also need to be open enough to pivot. We're not pivot, but work to people's strengths. So when we created the Sanderson, we created it as we want to have this great steak, red meat, beef, lamb styled venue. And the chef that we found, James Green, who's amazing, has this great great experience with seafood. And we're like, well, let's not try to put a square peg into a round hole here. Let's expand on our original concept and include more seafood, play to his strength. So whilst you can go in with a concept that's, pretty ready to deliver, I think, making sure that you always use give a nod to people's strengths is important.
Yeah, I love that collaboration approach, because I'm sure now the chef feels like he's, you appreciate him, you let him kind of be his authentic self and, and kind of input his strength and his uniqueness in it.
Oh, and his seafood cooking.
That's amazing. Okay, now the purpose of this topic I wanted to talk about, because I got to know you a little bit at the workshop, is that during your time running the company, you had to experience, a personal situation where you became divorced. So I would love for you to share that, because I haven't had anyone on the show talking about this topic. So I thought it would be perfect for us to kind of understand, when did it happen? How did it affect your life? And maybe someone who's listening might be able to kind of, learn from it, and maybe it will ease their journey through a divorce as well.
Yeah, sure. Happy to share. It's been almost 2.5 years since the separation and divorce. Probably wouldn't have been as open to kind of talk about it a year and a half ago, because it is it's as bad as it kind of sounds, really. Like I wouldn't wish someone going through it like a divorce on my worst enemy. It's just tough times. I've got a beautiful child as well, which it adds to the complication. Running a business, now a single dad as well. So it happened like almost 2.5 years ago, and I think I'd been in EO maybe for 2 months. I think I'd done 1 or 2 forums before I kind of got separated. And I remember that I had a forum booked in, like, I think a couple of days after the original separation, and I didn't want to go at all. Like I didn't want to sit in a room with at the time, 7 somewhat strangers who are now definitely a few years down the track, far from strangers. And but I was like, no, this is one of the reasons I've joined EO. I've joined EO to be vulnerable, go that extra 5%, share my challenges, and as any entrepreneur knows, like, your personal life is so intertwined with your company and everything you do. And I think for many entrepreneurs, there is no work-life balance. It's just life. I mean, I know about the balance quite a lot, but for me, it's just life. It's just so intertwined. And it was very, very rough. So I went for that first day, and I'm very glad I did. And I think being in EO for the last couple of years has been that kind of rock that's guided me through it. In the kind of the initial stages of going through that, like turning up to work and being the rock for the senior management team. So we've got around 250, 270 staff. It fluctuates. 13 people in head office that kind of form the senior management team, who I kind of work with more closely than the venue teams these days. And going into work day in, day out, well, everything that's happening in your personal life is kind of, as bad as it can get. And turning up and trying to still be positive, still have your eye on the game, even though you tell your staff, hey, you can leave that stuff at the door, don't let it affect your work. In reality, when it's happening to you, it's really, really hard. And everything at the time felt very out of control. I just had no control over this, a lot of stuff that was happening in my life. And it was just, I was very much in the passenger in my personal life. I felt like I was in the passenger seat on a roller coaster, and I had no control over everything. So I guess I started to control the things in my life that I could control. Not that there's ever been a big issue, but I stopped drinking to get clarity. I doubled down on my exercise, maintained a really healthy lifestyle, got really clear in my head about, what am I tackling this week? What am I tackling the week after? What am I tackling the next month? Where do I need to be present? How can I kind of, make sure I'm spending time on myself? So I started controlling the things in my life that I really had control over, because I just didn't have control over so many other things. And then, of course, prioritize things in my life, like, prioritize working, being a great leader for the team, prioritize being, being there for my daughter. And then over the next couple of years, just making sure that, controlling the things to control, making positive efforts and positive changes, other things have fallen into place. Did I throw myself into work a little bit? Yes. It was good timing, somewhat good timing, in that we were opening a huge new project in Sydney, which is the Sanderson and on George Street, which is, it's in a heritage building. I think it was it should have been a 2-year project, but the landlords wanted a quick turnaround. So it was an intensive 14-month project, I think. And that happened at the same time. So kept me busy. But it has been challenging. I'm in a pretty, good place now. Single dad. I've got 7 days on with my daughter and 7 days off. And I work, largely work from home for 7 days when I've got her. I'm at home today because she's at school down the road. And the next 7 days, I'm everywhere. I'm in our office. I'm in the venues. I'm up to Sydney. I'm, I'm barely at home at all. And I do remember when it first happened, I posted something on the EO WhatsApp network, and it was I think I posted something like, looking for a divorce lawyer. I wish it was asking for a friend. And I actually had some people I've never met before reach out and say, I hope you're okay. And then there was one gentleman who reached out and said, I've been through this before. Do you want to meet up and have a coffee and talk about it? And I was like, obviously you're still finding it hard to kind of, at this stage, talk about it and open up about it. But I was like, this guy, he owns his own business. He had a child around the same age as my child when he got separated from his ex. And why not? What can I lose from meeting up with him and having a coffee? And we did, and he gave me some great advice. But he didn't really try to give me advice, but just some great insights. But I can see he was happy. He was I guess 3 years down the track from where I was at that time, and that great reminder that this too shall pass. This shall pass. Like the feeling that you go.
Wow, that's such an inspirational story, and I can relate with you. Like when I decided to quit alcohol, I actually reached out to the WhatsApp group as well. I'm trying to quit, and so many people reach out and help. So I love that EO. Through your story, you're really showing how EO has been such a rock for us all, because we're all entrepreneurs, all doing life together, and one of us have been through what we've gone through right now. Just want to take you back to you said 2 years that you've been broken up, but the relationship itself, has it been just pretty bad for a long time and then you broke up, or has it been it was quite a shock to you as well, and so you had to deal with not just a divorce, but it's like a shock, because it's kind of like a different experience. So I'd love to understand a little bit more.
Yeah, it definitely was. It wasn't there was no major incident. There was no kind of cheating or violence issues. There's nothing like that. It was a long-term kind of breaking down of a relationship. And I think we used to argue about the small things, and then COVID came along, and I think COVID put a big divide in our relationship. My ex-partner is in healthcare. So during COVID, as a business owner, of a hospitality business owner, I'm like, we need to open back up. We can't stay locked down forever. And she was like, we should stay locked down forever. And it just created a lot of tension in the household. For 2 years of COVID, we almost couldn't talk about COVID in our house because it was, we had such different opinions on it. And when, I'm sure everyone was for 2 years in every household, people, all they talked about is COVID, COVID this and COVID that. You can turn on the news without, flashing up 11 o'clock daily, announcements down here in Melbourne. You can set your watch to it, but you come home and you can't talk about it. Couldn't talk about that was affecting the business because someone from healthcare had a totally different lens that they were looking at this through. And I guess that just ended up dividing us as people, and it kind of, that wedge was just too hard to repair. Definitely tried and put some effort in, but it was at the end of the day, it was just too far.
Yeah. So what did you tell yourself to know that, yeah, this is it, like there's other people listening, maybe they're going through some stuff and they know that it's not a perfect relationship, it's not right. And then, but, walking away, being in such a long-term relationship, etc. Like, how did you know that, yeah, this is the right call to move forward?
Well, actually, she made the call, not me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I was kind of, I never wanted to bring a child up in two households.
Yeah.
And I was probably willing to suffer a lot more than she was. In the unhappiness, I was like, oh, and I knew I was unhappy. And looking back now, I kind of realized how unhappy. But like in the time, I knew I was unhappy. But I was like, I can put up with it. Like, you know what I mean? And then so she made the call to end it. And looking back, it was definitely the best option because now, my daughter has two much happier parents in separate households. And she's 6 now. So I think she was just about to turn 4 when we originally separated. And I don't think, apart from looking at photos and stuff, she's just grown to understand that having two parents that love her dearly is better than a lot of people have it in this life.
Yeah. Oh, I love that inspiration. Me and my husband chose the movie Mrs. Doubtfire a few weeks ago. We forgot what it's even about. We just thought it was a funny movie with a cross-dresser, and it ended up being about that kind of story about, a broken family, and yet they're there for the kids and reassuring the kids that we're just two good people, just wasn't good for each other, and but we're still there for you. So it was just a really, really great movie to watch. If you were to give any advice to people who are still married, right? Because you're a divorcee, someone who's divorced, what advice would you give in terms of you wish you could have done, apart from COVID and all that stuff, but were there other kind of like communication things that you wish you could have done, and that if you're looking forward to the next relationship, you would kind of implement these things?
Are you looking to a divorced person for relationship advice?
Because when I went through a breakup, I learned a lot. I said in the next relationship, I am definitely not going to go for a guy that's just good looking. For example, I need someone with a personality. Or there was lots of lessons that I learned from a breakup that I was able to bring to my future relationship. So I was curious to see if you've learned something through this 2 years of reflection.
Yeah, I guess I would have pushed harder. Like we started counseling, and then she didn't want to do counseling anymore. And I think I was like, okay, I'm sure we can deal with this ourselves. But like in my head, I was like, I don't think we have the tools that are needed between us to fix this. I think we need someone external to come in and give us the tools that we need. And I didn't push hard enough from that, I think. And I was just like, okay, you don't want to do it, that's fine. Like, I would have pushed harder on that to reconcile, and potentially, those little things that bother you, like just don't kind of let them go by, and be like a bit more kind of, hey, that was this happened, and I didn't like it, and because it just builds up and stuff. So I guess don't sweat the little stuff. Is probably one bit of advice, and I'll probably live by in a new relationship.
Yeah, and going through the breakup, can you share some sort of like different emotions you felt? Was it the first month it was like everything was fine? Because I heard that when you go through a breakup, it's like going through grief when someone died, and you smile, and then the next minute you're like, it hits you like a ton of bricks, and you're like emotional. And so I'd love to hear how you experienced that journey after you had that bad news or the breakup.
Yeah, I guess there was a sense of failure. I guess like a lot of entrepreneurs probably we don't like failure, and I think I just took it as like I'd failed, like this is failure, like I failed at something. And I'm lucky I've never really suffered from anxiety or depression or anything like that in regular life, but like it was just this overwhelming pressure, like and sense of like sadness that this like had been over, like so I think it was like not clinical depression or long-term depression, but definitely suffered at short-term situational sadness. I'm not going to label it depression, I think, but there was a deep sadness in there that this was kind of over, and just this overwhelming feeling of the unknown, of what's going to happen in the future. How is the future going to look? And that unknown has lasted for some time, because my ex-partner decided to move to the other side of the city, right? So I'm like, at some stage I'm going to have to move. Like I can't be a co-parent to my daughter when it takes me an hour to drop off. Like something's going to happen, change. So like I only moved house in November of last year. So until then I knew that I'd have to move at some stage. So there's still unknown. Where am I moving? When am I moving? How is it going to look when she goes to school? Like all of this stuff. And now that I've moved to the other side of town, I've got a routine with her. She's very happy. I'm a lot happier. It's great. But I guess the big emotions were failure, unknown. How is this going to look in the future? What's going to happen? Am I going to have to fight for my daughter? Am I going to be in courts fighting for the next 2 years? Like all of that stuff and unknown. And of course, going in from the early days as an entrepreneur, like how is this going to affect my company? What's a property settlement going to look like? Am I going to have to give up a chunk of something that I had before I even met her? So it's just all that unknown just swimming in your head. And anybody that goes into a divorce, like I didn't know how long it actually takes. It takes a long time for all the. I mean, you can get married at with the one signature and 24 hours notice. But getting divorced is like a 2-year process with hundreds of pages of documents and hours of legal time.
Yeah. And if you were to be able to talk to your old self, now that you've gone through the journey, right? What would you tell that self who was just like, oh my God, what's going to happen in that moment? What would you say to him?
The same thing the gentleman from EO probably said to me when we met coffee, just it'll pass. And yeah, there is happiness, there is light at the end of the tunnel. Time heals everything, and at the end of the day, I just focused on the stuff that I could control, and I'd probably just say, just keep doing that, keep doing what you're doing. I was very, I just wanted to be after the split, very, very proud of the way I handled myself. I didn't, there was no crazy, phone calls or texts or I didn't, there was no yelling, there was no, emotion. I just took everything, and I was like, 6 months, a year from now, if I look back at how this separation happened, how the divorce happened, I want to be proud in everything I did. I helped my ex, put white goods in a new apartment. I bought her spices and all the condiments for a new apartment. Just tried to make the transition easy for her. Because I thought it'd be, I wanted to be able to be proud of looking back on how I acted.
That is so amazing to hear. It's yeah, you're just so noble. You had your heart broken in a sense, and yet you're able to think about the other person. And I can just see how healed you are. And that's why you get to share this, such a beautiful story. I really love that. So how has your divorce experience impact you in a way, like in terms of your leadership? Like, were you able to bring any lessons, or did it shape you into a different person now as a leader in your business?
Well, I guess, like, one thing I might have done is, like, my team around me were kind of very supportive. Like, they always ask, "Are you okay?" Like, and I guess it probably showed more of allowed me to show more of a human element. Like, drop your guard a little bit, show some vulnerability. The senior team around me, especially like some of the team that have been there for 5-6 years, it's just, they become friends. They become, close, almost family like. And I guess, just as a leader, understanding that sometimes you just do need to lean on the people around you a little bit, and allow support from underneath, and being a leader and allowing someone to kind of, prop you up a little bit is not weakness. I mean, as leaders, we are there to serve our teams, but sometimes, it's okay to let them prop you up a little bit too.
Yeah. Oh my God. Oh, I just love listening to you. I want to wrap it up with, I guess the final question is, ultimately, with everything that you're doing, and you already inspired me so much, but yeah, what do you want the world to remember you for? What impact do you want to make to this place, Earth?
You told me to get ready for this question. Good, and I haven't really. I haven't thought about it since you sent it. I guess someone like, I mean, as a parent, like, I want to be known by my daughter as being someone who is a super supportive father, and to the people around me in the company. I'd like to be known as someone that's supportive for them, and being able to support people being a success in their roles, as well as just being a genuinely nice human being. Not for the fear of hell or the reward of heaven, but because, like, just being a general good human being to the people around you is important to me, and I think, and to the community. Like, and as I get, a little bit older, and I've moved to suburbia. I like parts of, like, these little communities, whether it's the school community that my daughter's kind of now in, or the local community and my neighbors, and she was in Nippers, and just giving a bit more of my time back to the community. I'd like to be known for that.
Oh my God. Thank you so much, Greg. This is such an amazing episode. I know so many people would be able to benefit from this. But yeah, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you on the show today.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, we'll make sure to put all your details in the description below so people can connect with you. But yeah, bye.
Thank you.